as ever, welcomed by the two lads either side of us. You might have seen the live a little bit earlier. It was eventful. There was somebody thrown out of St James's Park. It was all very tame. It wasn't like a bad one. Got involved in the live a little bit. We had Jordan on the live.
Yeah, done a quick couple of minutes.
Yeah, so do check it out. Before we get onto the game itself, Newcastle United, of course, cruised past Ipswich Town. It was a bit easy, wasn't it? So before we get onto that, like, comment, share, subscribe. Do check all of that out, all the bits and bobs below and all the sponsors. And we'll have a little quick word now from our sponsors before we get into the real stuff about the game we've just watched.
Comply IT Limited. Worrying about disposing of your old IT equipment? Don't be. Comply IT handle everything. Secure collection, detailed tracking, and certified data destruction. That's Comply IT Limited. We've also got Mitigate. Mitigate enhances workplace mental health, helping businesses stay compliant, reduce absences, and unlock higher productivity, creating healthier, happier teams. And of course, our OG sponsors, Four Rivers Financial Planning. Four Rivers Financial Planning offer holistic financial advice for all stages of life, ensuring your plan remains robust and adaptable in the ever-changing world we live in.
And that was your Geordie Journal sponsors, of course. All of the details that you need for those sponsors will be below. Right, on to the stuff that you've really come here for, and the stuff that matters. They don't matter, of course. That's not saying things don't matter. Thoughts on that one, lads? It was. You know what? I always get called, and possibly you might be right out there, I always get called Mr. Negative, don't I?
Don't be negative.
No, I know, and I don't want to sort of perpetuate that rumour, but I find that sometimes in the Premier League it's so easy games that it becomes quite dull. Like, that was just easy, wasn't it, in the second half?
It was a proper non-contest after that. When it was made 2-0, it was proper non-contest. Where it was like Anthony Gordon comes on, Callum Wilson comes on, and then realistically, they've not really got much to bite at because the game's just totally dead. Ipswich, to be fair, them pulling a shift first off.
Half an hour. I thought for half an hour, they defended deep with a banks of 5, but you know what? Until the sending off, I thought they kind of held their own.
No, they did.
I really like what I saw. Of course, Newcastle, you guys addressed it on the video on Friday about Liam Delap and the rumours and how we probably think the balance of probability says he won't end up in Newcastle United. But you can see why he's looked at. That was the first time I'd seen him live. And just from that first half hour, he's quick, he's strong, he's physical, he doesn't mind he won't get bullied off anybody as he did with Dan Burn. He moves with the ball at speed. He looks like a player who could play wide, never mind up front. He's so mobile. You can see why everybody's looking at him. But they didn't have much else, did they? They had a couple of cloggers in midfield.
I tell you what,
the Egyptian bloke, I was singing about him, honestly. Get yourself in the bin, son. You're useless.
He's horrible, isn't he?
I
remember back at Portman Road as well. I think he was a bit of a horrible bugger that day as well.
He was.
But the thing is with that, there was obviously Julio and Senso I mentioned. Felt like it was a bit of a job to try and wind up Joe Willock, but I think it was a pre-match thing because obviously they would have prepared for Joe Linton being that left-hand side of the midfield. But even though Joe Linton was out the foot, I'll just do it anyway. Yeah. And Joe Willock took the brunt.
He was baffled. He just keep looking across. He was like, "What is going on?"
He's like, the first 20 minutes, he was being off the ball. He was being, and Senso was giving him a few words. It was like, felt sorry for Joe, but
yeah. So I liked what I saw from Delap. I liked also what I saw from probably the talking point of Newcastle in the second half, as much as it was a stroll in the park. Dom, I thought it was nice to see a cameo from Will Osula, who obviously there's a lot of column inches, there's a lot of talk among the fan base, with not a whole lot to back it up in terms of performances on the pitch. But one thing that I thought was a key thing today was Callum Wilson's had a lot of minutes compared to him. And I've always given the excuse, and I say that for Anthony Gordon recently as well, they're coming into games that's been dead either way. It's either won or it's lost. And can you really impact a game? Well, they all came on a blank sheet of paper today. Yeah. And what Will Osula did in a game that was already gone was actually thought, I'm going to get on the ball, I'm going to show a bit of energy, and I'm going to show a bit of myself. And all credit to him.
Yes, he was brilliant. He was only on the pitch about 15 minutes, but scored a great goal, great header, came close again in stoppage time, and you just look at the almost disparity between his substitute performance and Callum Wilson's substitute performances, not just today, but over a stretch of games where he's coming on, it's just going through the motions. Will Osula, he played on the right, he comes on and almost adopts the role Jacob Murphy or Harvey Barnes had been in, and he shows a bit of energy and shows a bit of guile. He attacks, and that's what you want from Will Osula. But for the first time this season, we've actually seen, bar the Bromley game, a bit of quality in front of goal as well. He got that shot away in stoppage time, but nice.
It's not bad cutting in from the right onto his left, is he?
Yeah, exactly. He's quite both-footed as well. That's something we noticed in the warm-up against Villa.
We did actually, yeah.
What foot is he? Is he left-footed or right-footed? Because he'd take it both ways.
Yeah, he
is
did.
right-footed, as I understand it anyway. But yeah, didn't need either foot because great header.
It was a great header. What I would say is, obviously, this always comes with a caveat, is the opposition in the game, and it was already won, and it was going through the motions time. But if you compare Callum Wilson's substitute cameos, much older, a different kind of player, of course, I'm going to give him that. But then Will Osula showed today that even in a game that's drifting and gone, you can still grasp
be that
it.
Spark,
yes, be the spark. And that's all you need from your substitutes. Again, against low-quality defenders who are all going to be playing in the Championship, and rightly so, next season. But he grasped his opportunity, and that's all you can ask from the lad. I was really heartened by that. So, are we going to add there?
No, I'm just saying what we saw from Will Osula today is probably what we thought we were signing, or Newcastle were signing in the summer. This is a player who can come on, replace Alexander Isak for 20 minutes and just go 100 miles an hour and really attack games. And we've seen it in glimpses, don't get me wrong, and when he started games against lower league opposition, he has done relatively well. But today, like you say, against a lower level, but it's still a Premier League game, good to see him score his first Premier League goal. He did in 15 minutes as much as you could expect from a player.
He's done as much as what Wilson has in every single minute that he's had ahead of him.
In the Premier League.
In the Premier League, yes. Right. And what I would say, the lad is raw. I'm certainly not pinning my hopes on him being this, that and the other next season, but you can't fault what I've seen from him there in that little thing, that little cameo that we've seen. My other standouts today, I would say, I thought the two fullbacks were really good. I think everything that you say today has got to be caveated with the fact it was poor opposition and 10 men. 10 men. So Kieran Trippier was the archetypal fish out of water at Villa Park, where he was pulled into all kinds of deep water where he did not want to be. Yeah. That wasn't the case today. It was all played in front of him. He did a little bit of decent defending when was needed, a bit of physical threat when Delap drifted out there or whatever, or in Cisco or whatever. But he strolled through that game. Livramento was a decent threat on the left. The midfield strolled through it. Bruno had the space where he didn't have an inch last week against Aston Villa. He had the whole play of St James's Park to do what he wanted, and so did the others around him. It was as routine a Premier League win as you're going to get. And is this good team? You know, do you just get to a point in the season where good teams just win games by just turning up? Or Newcastle United, one of those teams now. We've had this discussion this season, and the amount of times we come on these videos where it's like, that was easy.
Yeah, they just turned up.
They just turned up, yeah. It just turned up and was themselves.
To be fair, I don't want to sound negative, but most teams have just had to turn up against Ipswich this year. But you're right, because Crystal Palace last week rolled through them. There's been other games in midweek as well. Wolves didn't play well that day. They won 3-0. So I think it is signs of
it's 20 wins in 26 games.
Yeah, which is
you look at, you can look at today's game in isolation, go, Newcastle were probably at 60-70%, still won 3-0. But when has Newcastle been on a run? 20 wins in 26 games. If you do that in league games over the course of the Premier League season, you're right at the top of the table.
But that's where they can't. They haven't got this. They haven't got the depth to be able to go deep into a season like that and compete. Yeah. And that's probably why they'll finish where they'll finish, which will be anywhere between 6th. I think that's the lowest they'll drop this season.
5 points ahead of Villa now is really important.
It's very important. It's a marker, and it's pressure. It's pressure for Aston Villa, who have been on a remarkable run themselves, and all Newcastle United could do is put that pressure on.
Yeah, on multiple fronts as well. I think that's the.
Well, we don't know after this video, by the way.
But it has
been
time
of recording, they'll get beat 1-0.
But they're still
but they are still fighting on. Yeah. They've been in 3 competitions deep into the season. Whereas you look at the likes of Newcastle, Nottingham Forest in particular, where it's been Forest and Newcastle both reached latter stage of the domestic cup competitions, but haven't had Europe to contend with, which I think has benefited both teams. And Newcastle's, we've touched on it many times, Newcastle's squad depth is still not at a level where Aston Villa's is. And well, we'll see.
Time of recording, it was 2-0, so we don't know.
Does that burst the Villa's bubble? Because Newcastle will be on these good runs, and you do have a dip, and you come back eventually. We do have a dip. Has their dip came at the wrong time?
It's two damaging losses in a week, if that's how it comes to pass, because we don't know if that's what will happen. But I thought that defeat at Manchester City, the emotion of it, the fact they'd gone there, competed, it wasn't we only seen probably the second half, didn't we? It wasn't a great game in terms of quality. It wasn't what you'd look at and say, wow, that's two teams right at the top of the division. But it was entertaining. There was chances at both ends, and Villa went to Manchester City, did something Newcastle would be incapable of doing, which is stand toe-to-toe with them and compete, and only lost for the last kick. But it was that last kick. We watched, should we say where we watched? We watched from the Wallsend Buffs, the best social club in the northeast, in our opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
We watched the game Tottenham Hotspur against Nottingham Forest, and it was one of those that if we felt if Forest could have got if Tottenham had got that, it would have burst Forest's bubble, because they would have went from going, I'm not sure we're going to do this, to we believe again, winning 2-0 Tottenham, and then pop, no you're not, back down son. But they're flying again, they've got good fixtures. I can't pick it. I can't pick this season. I've no idea.
Well, the good thing is, I think Chelsea, Manchester City are going to finish there. There's no doubt about that. And then you've got Nottingham Forest, who I think will probably creep in. I think it's between Newcastle and Chelsea.
I think the next game here
is going to decide. Because Newcastle have got Chelsea to play here, that's why I think decides where it's either Newcastle or Chelsea.
I said to you a few weeks ago.
And that's a U-turn from me, by the way, because I said Nottingham Forest was going to miss out a week ago. But
that's what I mean, it changes. It
changes
all the time.
I'll probably change next week.
So Newcastle go and get beat Brighton next season. No, we're starting to panic then. And it's suddenly like Chelsea is the biggest pressure game, must win that you've got, because you go to Arsenal the week after. And we don't know where Arsenal
but if
might be off the back of a Champions League semi going into a Champions League final. And there might be, we're chilled now. We're going to finish second, one up.
But imagine if you get a result at Brighton and you beat Chelsea here, you can probably afford to drop points in those final two games against Arsenal and Everton.
If you go and win at Brighton and beat Chelsea, it's sealed nearly.
That's, I mean,
you would just probably need another point.
Drop a few points.
I think 7 gets you in. So if you win the next 2, you'd probably only need a point, even though it might get a bit hairy on the last day. But I suspect now, and I said this a few weeks ago, I didn't think it would, because Newcastle are in such good form. The way other teams have kept going and not giving up an inch, I think it will go to the last day. I don't see another way of it happening.
I mean, talking about that Chelsea game now, I am a little bit worried, because I think they'll be without a key player for that one. And a man that always turns up for the big games, a man that you need, and Joe Linton. You
were in the press conference there, and you'll be able to relate better than me, but what I'd seen, and I seen the quote, and I wasn't sure it meant he was definitely out, but you thought it was a concern, didn't you?
Yeah,
it certainly was concerning, because Eddie Howe said Joe Linton trained yesterday, still feeling his knee, which was the knee injury that kept him out for a prolonged period, and he's been for a scan. And whenever a player goes for a scan, is it a scan as a precaution? Eddie Howe didn't say that, so you don't know, but I think whenever a player goes for a scan on a historic injury, there's probably not great signs.
It's a fact that he's been playing through it, because he's been feeling it for a few weeks. I don't think it's ever gone away from him really, but he's battled through. And the fact that he had to, because he trained yesterday, the fact that he had to stop and see it, and intervention here, that worries me, because he's got the point now where he clearly can't play through it.
They didn't miss him today.
But
they probably won't miss him against Everton, you would imagine. But the other 3,
it's the hard battles where you need a physical threat in the middle.
Yeah.
Especially Chelsea.
Chelsea's the one at home here, which is, of all the games, we're looking at and saying, you could probably still scrape through by dropping points away from home. The home games, they're going to have to win them. They have to beat Chelsea. And realistically, what I would say is, I was sitting thinking this in the second half, if you want to compete with Europe's best next season, and one of your biggest challenges is to go to Brighton and get something, that shouldn't be the biggest hurdle to overcome. A team like this should be able to go somewhere like Brighton, who are inconsistent but have often had Newcastle United's number, home and away, should be able to go to a club like Brighton and get something.
No, that's
so I'm not.
It's just history down there that the don't
it's
play
grim,
well.
No, it's not been great at all. We've been down. I've never seen them win.
I'm trying to think, have they won a Premier League?
You've seen them win, haven't you?
I've seen them win the Championship.
I don't think they've ever won a Premier League.
The best result they've had.
Yeah, he was there. He was there. The Diarmi.
Aye, that was. I think that was the last time they won, didn't it?
The whole away end, because there's a big TV line the away end that showed the replay of Diarmi's goal. And honestly, I'm not exaggerating this. The whole away end was generally laughing. That's the first thing I've heard. If a group of fans pee themselves at a goal. But anyway.
But it's not been a happy hunting ground since.
Even the FA Cup ties have had down there. They got beat down there twice in a
row. 2 years in a row, didn't they?
But you're right. You're right in what you're saying though. Look at Brighton now, the sort of, I know that they might be able to climb into the 8th. I think they're still in contention there, but that sort of bracket of the table, you'd rather play that than teams at the top. So
look, what a Europa League football is guaranteed, but we know the problems with that would bring. It's not necessarily the team, it's not necessarily the club. It's the idea of the financial growth of the football club, that you need Champions League football, and with there being an extra one this year, it will be a big miss. I think having got themselves in this position not to do it, and I think it'll be definitely felt in the financial halls of power here at this wonderful place where we sort of sit in the bowels at the moment.
Yes. No, Eddie Howe was actually asked, and almost smirked when he got asked it, but it was like, is winning or getting in the Champions League almost going to feel more gratifying than the Carabao Cup win because of what it means in the bigger picture? And no, but Eddie Howe just said, I'll let other people decide that, which makes sense, because I think a cup is so much.
Look, he's going to be able to get the players he wants.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to be able to compete for the players that he wants, at least, if they get in the Champions League. If they don't get in the Champions League, I think we all know it's going to be a scrap and scrape around, not to the degrees it probably has been recent times, but it's definitely not going to be a transformative, which is what everybody really wants to see. We want to see that levelling up after 3 windows without, I mean, Lewis Hall was 2 windows ago, wasn't he? The permanent transfer. We want to see that levelling up, and Champions League is the only key to that door.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying. You were saying it earlier, where it's like you almost need to look at the bigger picture of the squad and play the squad game a bit better. And because you scratch the surface, we're talking about the Joe Linton injury, and you're like, well, how does this midfield manage with 4 games left to go if he was indeed out for the next few or whatever? So
does Joe Willock get that? Is that Joe Willock's spot, or would you think of?
Well, Eddie Howe explained that Joe Willock is the natural left-sided midfielder to come in. Central midfielder to come in if Joe Linton's out, and that's what it was. Louis Miley prefers to play on the right. That's basically the factor behind that decision.
The only thing was with Joe Willock, and I think although he didn't, I think he was a standout today by any stretch.
No, he played.
But I think when you go to places like Brighton, there's potential for him to not be anonymous. Because we've seen that a few times. I think the one that really stands out to me was Fulham early on the season.
May as well not have been.
I think he was brought off at half time.
Took an injury, didn't he? He got knocked or something.
Wait,
apparently. Was that one?
I think so.
Last season he got an injury.
Oh, was it that?
He did get an injury last season.
But I mean, if Joe Linton is out, who's going to be the player that grasps opportunity? I mean, Joe Willock will probably get a nod based on today, but you know, we done a video yesterday on Lewis Miley. Is it his time to come in? I actually thought it was a better cameo from him today.
Played a great ball through to Callum Wilson.
It's the dead game thing, so it's hard. It's always got to be caveated that with that. Like I said, Bruno had the run of the part. He could have done anything he wanted.
Should have scored.
He could have had a couple of days. It should have been a goal.
Oh, honestly, soft as
he
claws.
Scored. He did score. It should have been given.
Soft as claws, that goalkeeper.
He was unlucky.
So just put his body on.
Yeah, it's.
Goalkeeper's too protected, man.
Yeah. See what you were shouting from the press box.
What was I shouting?
Soft as
clots.
Maybe not.
Into the nest. Into the knee. Can't sit on you. YouTube will strike off.
No, they will. I think I swore on the live a couple of times.
It's live.
I think we're alright. It's live. It's a live show. You're allowed the odd out too. Right.
If Bruno can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, of course. So is that the business? Is that everything concluded? Is there anything we need to add or anything we want to talk about before we move on to tougher battles ahead?
Yeah. No, I think today it was just job done, box tick. This was the game Newcastle couldn't drop points in, really, for
and
me.
They didn't. Never looked like really dropping them.
No, I thought Ipswich caused them a bit of problems first 5 minutes, where Dan Burn passes it across goal and
self-inflicted.
Yeah, there was a little bit of bite from Ipswich first 5 minutes, but once Newcastle settled into the game, never really looked back. Well, obviously helped out by the red card and then the penalty, but I think both decisions were correct from a referee who never really looked in real control of the game.
He was in trouble all the way.
At the end of the first half, it was bloody chaotic. It's like everything. There was 1 minute added time.
VAR must have checked almost every decision. What it felt like. 1 minute added time. He spent 2 minutes just trying to tell Liam Delap and Dan Burn to behave themselves.
Yes.
Booked them both. So how there was 1 minute added time, I don't know.
No, it was mad. Yes.
Newcastle got the goal.
I was really surprised how feisty they were, Ipswich. They gave a bit like.
Yeah.
I say that Morsey was the epitome of it, but there was a few tackles flying in, and little off the ball moments, and as I say with Delap and Burn, when because you see we quite like that from
I liked it.
Delap when it's Burn's obviously pushing him, he's getting
I'm
a bit
not going to
back.
let you're a big
What's
lad,
it?
and I'm
It
not
is
going to
nice.
let you bully us, and I like that.
Yeah. Probably a video
Job
for
done.
another time, but it raises a point. Ipswich have put up the most fight of any newly promoted side and got relegated with 4 games left to play.
How does it feel to be a relegated Premier League manager?
Oh, yeah. Because I'm Kieran McKenna.
You're Kieran McKenna.
I thought he was very classy, actually. I thought
Was he?
It was,
I spoke really
I
well
thought
after
he
I
spoke really well. He didn't. There's no bitterness. He just said, look, he recognised that disparity. Actually, he said teams coming from like their jumped up League One team really, and he said it's going to be hard for teams to do that now.
Yeah.
When you look at, because he was asked the comparison between like Burnley going up and down, but he said Burnley were established Premier League side, go down, come back up straight away.
But you look at Leeds squad, they're on like even I know they're not the top level players, but the type of players that come off Leeds' bench would literally walk in Ipswich's team, and that's like the difference. Yeah. They almost overachieved, didn't they, to get where they were?
Yeah.
And they're
much like Luton, who have then gone the other way.
Yeah, so Ipswich need to make sure they avoid that because they're a good club.
I hope they come back.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of a journey for us to go down there, but
we're happy Burnley and Leeds, aren't we? Really.
For
Burnley's
we could do with Sheffield United coming up, or
we don't want the unspeakable, do we? Do you?
I think that's a video or a discussion for another time. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, do so. Right, 21 minutes, we're going to get booted out of St James's Park. We've absolutely loved your company here on the Geordie Journos. Like, comment, share, subscribe for all your Geordie Journos content. And these guys will see you next week. We said we might do an extra. I'm not going to promise it again this week. But we'll see what we can do.
If the demand's there, comment below.
We'll do it.
The demand's never there.
Not recently. Good night.